What is up, you beautiful fucking people? Welcome back to the Unaligned and Unfiltered podcast. I'm your host, Jack, or the Twisted Wanderer, and welcome to season 2 of Unaligned and Unfiltered. Welcome back if you've been listening. Hi, I've missed you. So excited to be here today. Today we are kicking off season 2 with my origin story. For anyone who may be new listening to the podcast, I am going to share my origin story about scoliosis, how I kind of got to this point of making the podcast. And then we're going to talk about what to expect this season, because the season's going to be different. I'm really excited. So without further ado, less scoliosis. Okay. So hi, for those who are new to this, my name is Jack, or the Twisted Wanderer. I was diagnosed with scoliosis at the age of 13. I later on went on to have surgery at the age of 25 years old. For time right now, I'm 34 years old. This September will be my 10-year spinal fusion anniversary. So I'm really excited for that. And I want to share a bit more about my story, a bit more about me, so you all can understand the reason why we're here in this podcast, in this space, to talk about the twists of our lives. So I had my surgery at 25 years old, but 3 years before that, I lost my childhood best friend, Jake, to a heroin overdose. It was very traumatic loss for me. It was heartbreaking. It took me down a very dark path for a very long time. I didn't know it now, but I didn't know it then, but I kind of know now. I chose drinking as a coping mechanism from a really young age, kind of learning through therapy and stuff that I even used it as a coping mechanism for my chronic pain with scoliosis at such a young age. So when his death happened, that was my number one coping mechanism. And I went kind of down a really dark spiral for quite a long time. I moved to Nashville, Tennessee in about 2 years after his death, the year before my spinal fusion surgery. And I feel like I was just running away from life. I think when we experience such loss, we really just have no idea what to do with it. I think society tells us, 5 days of bereavement, you're good to go. 1 year up, it's been a year, you're back at it. But the truth is, it's been 13 years this year. It will be 13 years in July since Jake's passing. And there are days where I am still in the spot where my mom told me where he died. And I think a part of me will always be there. It's not easy to continue life through all these twists and all these emotional moments that change the course of our life, that change ourselves. Trauma itself changes us. And if we don't understand or have the tools for that at that time, it can take us somewhere really dark. And that is what happened to me. I think sometimes even when we have tools, there's just days where I read a quote once. It's like, grief is like kind of sometimes, I feel like it's sometimes you're in an ocean and you're like, the waves are there and like you're dealing with it, you're swaying back and forth. But then other days, like that wave consumes you and you can barely come up for air or the surface and you're just in your grief. And while there are many forms to grief, because I talk about grief in our body, and I feel like grief is something we don't talk about enough. So definitely expect more grief this season. Maybe some dark humor, okay? Because it's definitely a part of who I am. And I definitely, looking back now, really wish that I had mental support prior to my spinal fusion surgery, because I was in such a dark place. mentally before my spinal fusion with his loss, because it had only been 3 years. And then I think like things continued to escalate and I wasn't able to cope without drinking. So all of this to say, grief stays with us forever. It is not a 1 year and done thing. It is not you're magically healed when you go to therapy. Grief is a lifetime process, a lot with scoliosis, right? Like it is going to be there for life, even after spinal fusion to take care of it. You're still going to have scoliosis. So just because something happens, it doesn't mean that it's not going to affect you for the rest of your life. So I just really want to talk about Jake and that because I want you to think of this season as coming together to talk about everything in life that throws us twists, whether it be scoliosis, grief. I also have touched on a bit in previous seasons about my ADHD. And we're going to talk more about ADHD this season and the shame that it comes with if you don't understand how it affects you and how it affects women instead of men or girls instead of boys. So I say all this because the things that make us who we are and take us on the journeys throughout our life are so important. And I feel like life sometimes doesn't hold spaces for these conversations, these taboo conversations, like talking about grief and death and loss. And, sometimes when we try and talk about our ADHD, you hear, well, everyone has a little ADHD. Like, no. Or, oh, you have scoliosis and you're in pain and maybe you're young and you don't look like you would be in pain, right? Because you're too young for that. This is going to be a safe space to talk about all those things because life for me has been unaligned. Life for me has been twisted. I have gone through some shit. I've done some fucking shit and I'm ready to talk more about it, my experiences, my lived in experiences, give advice, hear from you all to talk about, what you've been through. If you want to share your story on here, you are more than welcome to. Just know that this is a safe space. You can anonymously share your story and I can read it on a pod. We are just connecting this season through our grief and our loss and our similar twists through lives, because if there is anything I learned from season 1 of this podcast is we are all more than our scoliosis, and we all have gone through so much to get to these points in our lives, whether that's like me starting a podcast or maybe you maybe you finally being ready to learn more about your scoliosis. It all comes in time. We all arrive at our own destination at the time that we're supposed to be there. And I think that's a hard lesson I'm learning because I've always felt behind with my ADHD, with learning, with life in general. I just have always felt like the world isn't built, or our society isn't built to talk about these things or to let us take up space for more than a second. Like it's important for us to be able to talk about the things who make us who we are, to talk about the people we've lost so that they stay alive, because they're never truly dead if we keep talking about them. So that's why I love to talk about Jake, because he's a huge part of my scoliosis story. He's a huge part of my life. I think of him as my spirit guide at this point in life, because he truly has led me to get better, even though if you would have told me I would have gotten to this point 13 years ago, even 5 years ago, I would have laughed in your face and probably chugged my beer. Okay. So yeah. So going into the spinal fusion after having such loss and not really understanding that I was using drinking as a coping mechanism, drinking got worse because of that. So that is something we'll also talk about on this season. So I'm going to be really vulnerable, pretty much be sharing my truth, because I feel like it's so important to talk about the twisted truths of our lives. So I hope you'll join me on this season to continue to learn more about scoliosis, spinal fusion, grief, loss, ADHD, life, our lived experiences in general, because it's so, so important to talk about them. And yeah, I think it's just, yeah, I'm just very excited for this season. So I know this is a shorter episode, but this is just me saying, hello, hi, how are you? I'm so excited for this season. And to share a bit more of what you can expect for this season, you can expect scoliosis and spinal fusion specific episodes on Sundays. We're going to call this the Scoli series. And of course, other things, but mainly scoliosis episodes will premiere on Sundays. And then on Thursdays, Twisted Thursdays, we are going to talk about everything else. We're going to talk about grief. We're going to talk about loss. We're going to talk about death, because as I'm learning, those are like 3 separate things. So wow. You're going to hear from people who have scoliosis and a spinal fusion, some without. You're going to hear from guests who don't have scoliosis at all, but who have been through traumatic loss of loved ones, and share their grief and share their loved ones' stories. And we're just going to make more room for these important twisted moments in our lives, because for some of us, life is twisted and we need to talk about it unfiltered, because there's too much fluff around shit these days for me. And I like to fucking tell it like it is. I like to process things like it is, because for too long I didn't. So I want to live unfiltered. I want to talk unfiltered about things that are so, so important, in hopes to help someone else share their story, or to just feel like they are less alone in this life. Because for a very long time, I felt isolated in my grief. I felt isolated with my scoliosis and spinal fusion. And it brought me to a point where, suicidal ideations came in. The feelings that I had felt for so long, but pushed them down through drinking, came to the surface and were demanding to be felt. It was honestly the scariest thing I had ever really felt. So I, in my heart, just know I need to talk about this, because if there is someone else out there who felt like how I felt, I want them to know they're not alone. Because when you're in that isolation, I feel like you truly, truly believe that you're alone. And once I started the podcast and just hit record that first day, just sharing my scoliosis story, I felt so much more. I felt lighter. Like, even if no one was going to listen to this, it just felt so nice to talk about it and to get it like off my skin. Like, I feel like when I talked about in therapy on Monday, you're just like scraping it off. Like, and that's what this has been for me. And I want that for other people. So that is my why for this podcast. It truly is to just create a safe space for people who share twists in their lives. So if you're excited for this season like I am, please follow the podcast. Follow the podcast on Instagram. On YouTube. It's under the Twisted Collective on YouTube. On Instagram, it's Unaligned and Unfiltered podcast. So please follow that. That's where things will be updated, where I'll announce new episodes being dropped, where all that good stuff will happen. So I'm really, really excited for this season, and I hope you all are too. And yes, so please, if you do want to be a guest, this season is, I don't know when it's going to end. So there is time to be a guest this season. So if you'd like to share your story, you can reach out to me at twistedwanderer418@gmail.com. And of course, if you want to share your story, we are going to be having a segment called Twist and Tell this season. I know I've teased that a few times and it never stuck, but it's sticking this season, okay? I got lots of plans for this season. I've taken a lot of time to actually plan it out instead of like, oh, ADHD brain just doing it. But I'm so excited because I have a plan. Okay. So, yeah, write in if you want to share a story, whether it be about scoliosis, spinal fusion, even questions, please. I am here for it all this season. I'm really excited. So yeah, that is the episode for this. We'll have a more, yeah, this is this episode. I just wanted to come and say hi, share a little bit more about myself, get you all pumped for this season. So remember, the Scully series will come out this Sunday because this episode will drop Thursday. It should be Thursday when you see this. So hi, hello. So this is the Twisted Thursday episode this week. And then Sunday will be the Scully series episode. So excited for you to enjoy that first Scully series episode. It's going to be really good. And then following the next week with a Twisted episode and so on. My goal is to post and share these podcasts with you every Thursday and Sunday of the week. So if that plan goes astray, you know me. No, it's not going to go astray. Okay. Because I've planned and I can do this. So Sunday Scully series, Twisted Thursdays. So excited for this new season. I'm so excited to have you all here. Thank you for following the podcast. Thank you for listening. And I will see you all in the next one. But until then, take care of your brain and take care of your spine. Okay. Love you. Bye.